In lesson 8, we're going to start talking about cultural values in text. So remember that a few lessons back, we started talking about the theme, and the theme is the message that the author wants to convey in the story, or the lesson that the author wants you to get from the story. And we remember this by, the words, the message, and they spell out theme at the beginning. Now, when you're reading a text, you can really see that it shows what's important to the writer or their culture. Inside the text, a lot of times they'll have their own values, core ideals, and principles that are important to them as a community. So when reading, you can make inferences about their cultural values as well. So let's go ahead and watch a video on how an author's life influences literary works.
We are all influenced by the world around us and have unique individual experiences that affect our personalities. In the same way, an author is influenced by their past when they write. Gender, race, and socioeconomic status also have a huge impact on their writing. Therefore, the more you know about the author, the better you can understand the messages central to their body of work. Let's look at several examples of when a writer's personal life is entwined with their writing. A prime example of the influence of one's personal life on their writing is the American poet Emily Dickinson, who lived from 1830 to 1886. Dickinson grew up in a prosperous family in Massachusetts. She lived a quiet and reserved life. In fact, she was a recluse, living in her father's house. She did not have a close relationship with her parents, who pushed a strong Christian doctrine on their daughter. Dickinson, however, withdrew from the world to live in seclusion, never marrying and having few friends. Her life choices and ability to live within herself are reflected in her poetry through a strong sense of imagination. The life experiences Emily lacked led her to delve deeply into her mind's eye. Note her acknowledgement of this in the stanza, "I dwell in possibility, a fairer house than prose, more numerous of windows, superior for doors." She states that she lives in a world where anything is possible in her imagination. Furthermore, since she lived a life void of a family, husband, children, or friends, she had a deeper appreciation for those things. In the following stanza from a different poem, look at how she judges the worth of something by its limits, similar to the limitation in her personal life. "Water is taught by thirst, land by the ocean's past, transport by throe, peace by its battles told, love by memorial mold, birds by the snow." Her poetry also shows a strong Christian influence. She often speaks of the afterlife and reaching the paradise of heaven. "Heaven is what I cannot reach, the apple on the tree, provided it do hopeless hang, that heaven is to me." In addition to the themes of her poetry, the syntax is also reflective of her secluded life. Dickinson does not conform to defined grammar and punctuation rules. Reread the previous stanzas of her poetry. Do you notice the overabundance of dashes? And capitalization mid-sentence for common nouns? These unconventional techniques reflect her own unconventional choices in life. It might make her poems more difficult to comprehend, but it is as if you can enter her introspective mind through these free-form lines. A second example of an author's personal life coming through in his writing can be seen with African-American poet and novelist Langston Hughes, who lived from 1902 to 1967. Hughes had ancestors that were slaves, and this heritage had a major impact on his work. In fact, he dedicated all of his writing to the black people's experience in America. Langston was raised by his grandmother, who ingrained in him a strong sense of pride in his heritage. In addition, he personally experienced the Harlem Renaissance in the 1920s, which was a cultural movement celebrating black Americans' traditions and customs. Hughes built his career around writing about black Americans' culture and making connections to his ancestors. Note those connections in the following stanza of one of his poems. "I, too, sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong." You can see how he shows a sense of pride in his heritage, but also celebrates the strength of his people. Many of his poems have this type of positive outlook on the future of black Americans. His poems encourage his people to be proud of where they come from and to push to succeed in the world. Here is another example from Hughes. I look at the world from awakening eyes in a black face, and this is what I see, this fenced-off narrow space assigned to me. I look then at the silly walls through dark eyes and a dark face, and this is what I know, that all these walls oppression builds will have to go. I look at my own body with eyes no longer blind, and I see that my own hands can make the world that's in my mind. Then let us hurry, comrades, the road to find. Emily Dickinson and Langston Hughes are just two among countless examples of an author's personal life showing through their writing. There are many more, including the authors F. Scott Fitzgerald and Maya Angelou. Fitzgerald is most known for his short novel The Great Gatsby, which takes place in the high society of New York during the roaring 1920s. The storyline strongly reflects his own life, where he lived among high society in New York during that era. He had personal interactions with the overindulgent, hypocritical, and shallow people in that society, which are the same kind of characters in the novel. Maya Angelou is another African-American author and poet from low economic status who incorporated her personal life experience into her writing. In fact, her most famous work, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, is a type of autobiography based on the racist and abusive experiences of her childhood. Every person has individual experiences that affect his or her personality, and an author is no different. History, gender, race, and other factors have a strong influence on their writing. One example of this is in the poetry of Emily Dickinson. She lived a secluded life until her death in 1886. Her poetry is very introspective and has powerful imagination. Langston Hughes shows his background in works that focus on and celebrate the pride of Black heritage and culture. Whenever you come across a new author, learn about their background, and you'll have significant insight into the messages of their literature.